You're listening to the newest member of the 210 Podcast Network, the It's a Guy Thing podcast. Join Mike, Rick, and Mario as we discuss the things we love in life, the things we hate, and all the stuff in between.
Welcome to It's a Guy Thing podcast. Let's get it on. First off, my name is Mario Zamron. I am the podcaster for 210 Local Media Podcast, and we are a part of that network. And I am your first host. Our next host going to the left of me.
To the left of him is Wayne. With him as always, Garth. Party on, Wayne. And party on, Garth. I'm Michael.
And to his left, I'm Rick. I'm from Texas.
I think we're pretty much all from Texas. Luckily, we're all in the same room. So we'll start off kind of the way I start off the 210 podcast. And I'll ask, going to my right this time, Rick, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Rick. I'm from Texas. And I'm from San Antonio. I'm a unemployed writer.
You are employed, but not as a writer.
Yeah, but I like talking about my job. It's top secret.
So that'll never be a topic we discuss?
Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe next time.
So at 12:01 tomorrow morning we'll
exactly. Is that my bio? Is that my intro?
Well, is that what you want to be your bio or intro? Do you want to?
For now, I want my nonsense to do my talking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, Mike, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Michael, and I am a hobbyist musician and a professional basketball player, although I don't get paid, but I play at a professional level at rec centers.
At rec centers?
Rec centers. Rec centers. Recreation centers. So, this is all in my head. This is all happening in my head.
So wherever there's kids, you play basketball?
No, they're in way too good of a shape for me. Wherever there's 50-year-old people that are in knee braces and crutches, I play.
You prey on the dying.
Is there any other way to ambulance chase?
Okay. And, of course, like I said before, my name is Mario Zamron. Aside from podcasting, I work for a credit union and would love to have podcasting be the only thing I do. And I'm trying to get more and more involved in the local media scene, music, entertainment, film, and so on and so forth. So, Rick, what are 3 of your favorite things? We'll start with that. We'll start on the positive note.
3 of my favorite things, as cheesy as it sounds, movies, music, and life. The third one's not real. Definitely movies have to be at the top of my list. I like to write movies and watch movies and make fun of movies and watch them with my friends and talk about them with my friends. But no, really. Movies is definitely my passion. On a smaller scale, music. I love listening to music. I dabble in it from time to time. And I'm a general appreciator of it. Those are the 2 biggest things I can think of without being sentimental.
Do you want to be sentimental on the third thing?
No.
So then on the third thing...
What? There was no third thing.
I said, what are your 3 favorite things?
Just letting it hang. I love my girlfriend. That's number 3.
Oh, that's sentimental.
Yeah.
That's sentimental, right? Do you think she'll listen to the podcast?
Probably not, but Carolyn, I love you. You're the best.
It might be better if she doesn't listen to the podcast.
All right, that's my 3 things.
I don't know, maybe. Mike?
Favorite things. Such an arbitrary thing to come up with. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna give you a hard time. I'm totally joking. Absolutely, music is number 1. As a hobbyist musician who likes to have fun in the garage, that's easily the thing I enjoy the most. Film would be second, easily, if I had to put these. And they're not in an order, just it's the next thing. It's the second thing I can think of. And then for me, it's basketball. That's another thing that's just a passion of mine. Playing, watching, coaching, analyzing. Just, in the world of sport, for me, that's the thing that fires me up. Spurs basketball. This is a heavy time of year for me. I tell people openly for the first time ever after us losing in the finals last summer. I came home and canceled cable literally for about 6 months because you talk about sentimentality. It was a straight emotional decision. It was so heartbreaking. It was about the equivalent feeling of having your first girlfriend break up with you. It was so just devastating. And anybody else that's a Spurs fan that's at that level completely understands that feeling. And I think, honestly, that's what sport is supposed to be. It's supposed to get you that way. So I could talk about any of those things all day infinitely.
Cool. Does anybody want to ask me mine so I don't intro myself?
Mario, what are your favorite things?
That kind of reminded me of Saturday Night Live. What was it? Good times, sweaty balls. Nobody.
We're here on NPR, and we'd like to discuss with you a few of Mario's favorite topics. But first, we're going to play a little piece here from Johann Sebastian Bach. This is Concerto Number 6, unnamed. He wrote it when he was just a fetus.
Okay. I think that's a good enough intro. My 3 favorite things are definitely music, movies, although I don't have nearly the memory for script that you guys do, and I'll get a little sentimental and say my family, my wife and son.
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
So Mike, what are your 3 least favorite things, or 3 things that really piss you off? And I don't know if now's the time to mention Red Hot Chili Peppers or not.
No, that's fine. I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers, specifically your favorite album, is what I hate the most. So Mother's Milk has to be, how can you name an album Mother's Milk? I mean, what are you thinking? No, seriously.
We're probably all high. I don't...
And usually that's supposed to breed creativity, and it just got worse. So, stay off the drugs.
Well, first of all, let me just set the people's mind at ease that know my musical taste. That yes, I do enjoy older Chili Peppers.
It's too late.
Mother's Milk is not my favorite.
You cannot defend
album.
Mother's Milk or
No. I don't plan on
Red Hot.
defending Mother's Milk. I'd have to say my favorite is.
I think you just want to say Mother's Milk on
I think
the
that's
air
what it is.
as much as
Milk.
possible. Yeah, you like
You just
saying
want to
that.
imagine the
Mother's
cover of them suckling her breasts.
The Time magazine
Even though
article.
nobody's doing that.
Aren't they, though?
No.
I
they're
thought it
just
was
posing.
cool to be a 10-year-old and breastfeed now.
I thought on the cover they were, like, suckling her.
No, they were just standing on her arms, I think.
I'm going to look it up.
Go
Keep
for it.
talking.
Go
Keep
for it.
talking.
I think there's a rose covering one of her. I don't know. I don't remember. You'll look it up.
My least favorite things, in all honesty, would have to be stupidity,
Okay, that's good.
unnecessary violence, and wars. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but really those are the things that for some reason seem to bring out the worst in people. It's not enough that those things are happening, but then people talk about them and have to fight about those things instead of things getting
being
better.
positive, yeah.
Right. So
Let's find a resolution
there's-
rather than...
right. So there's no shortage of stupidity in general, and I think that one leads to the other 2 things. So
Yeah.
it's just a ridiculous spiral that has festered. And, it probably causes 90% of our problems.
Yeah, I agree. Rick?
3 things I hate?
Yes. Or that really piss you off.
Oh. I
it
won't
doesn't
say
have to-
hate because I can't think of anything. There's things that I hate, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. Things that piss me off: slow internet connections, bills, and when you go through the drive-thru late at night and you order fajitas and they tell you they're out of fajitas and you have to order something else.
Yeah.
That's the easy stuff.
Yeah,
That's the easy stuff. I'm going completely off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Not
and that's
prepping
fine. It doesn't
answers.
need to be your permanent 3. I mean, that we'll talk about things that are pissing us off on a weekly basis moving forward anyway as well. But I would have to say my 3 things that really piss me off: stupid people. I agree with Mike. And not ignorant people. I think there's a separation between ignorance and just plain stupidity. If you're unaware, then that's not necessarily your fault. But if you're aware and you're just being stupid, then
Yeah, like
Shit on you.
you didn't know that the imperial symbol looked like what it looked like on my coffee mug.
that's just
You
ignorance.
know why? I'm gonna. In his defense, he was confused because the imperial symbol he thought was the Red Hot Chili Pepper symbol, and he thought, why would Mike have a Red Hot Chili Pepper coffee mug?
Okay. As far as
That's true.
but isn't there another imperial like symbol that's used in the films?
No, you're thinking there's the rebel symbol,
Which
and
is
there's
like
the
that bird
Imperial.
thing, right?
It's like the little.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Sweet.
That's the rebel symbol, the alliance symbol, and then there's the imperial symbol. It's only two you see that I know.
See, and the only one
They're
I ever paid
significant.
attention to is the rebel one. I couldn't even tell you what scenes that symbol was in for the imperial one.
It's on the helmets. Those guys have it on their helmets. The guys that go.
When Porkins dies, it's very...
Porkins. I'm glad you mentioned Porkins. He's like my favorite character.
Porkins dies an honorable death, man.
Break it up!
He tells everyone to stay on target, and then he bites
Stay on
it.
target. Stay on target.
Poor Porkins.
So aside from stupid people, I would have to say stupid people in cars
Oh no!
really piss me off.
Brutal.
Traffic.
And incompetent people, because not only are they incompetent, but they and this can be seen in a business sense. They promote other people that are incompetent because they're incompetent to the point where they can't recognize incompetence in others.
So you hate people.
Sure, we'll say that. I feel okay saying, generally speaking, I am not a huge fan of most people.
Wow.
That's pretty heavy.
So,
I appreciate your candor.
but by that
Oh, yeah, of
logic,
course.
most people, if this was a microcosm of the world, most people would be at least one of us that he can't stand.
I would not say a whole third of. If there was a fourth person,
That's
I may
most
not like
people.
them.
That's not even the majority.
But
right?
you can't judge it on a microcosm.
So which one of us is most likely to piss him off?
Me.
Yeah.
Well, I think
You were late for one.
I was
and
late for one.
That has already got you two.
I'm in the bad books.
That's already earned you two different keys of your car.
That's a topic we can probably definitely
Yeah.
dive into later.
Mario and Rick's car.
The Keymaster.
Okay,
How
so
dare you.
a little backstory on that.
Oh, we're
my-
jumping in.
Well, let's
First
just
episode,
dive
we're
in.
jumping
Let's just take care
let's
of
just
this
take care of
car
this.
key
Let's get this out of the
issue
way
now.
right now.
Let's knock it out, because this was one of the things.
I very thoughtfully left it off my list of things I hate, but
Well, we're going off top of our head, and that's the thing. He can't stop thinking about you being late. I can't stop thinking about cars being keyed by our gracious host.
Well, actually, we're in your home, so you are our gracious host.
you're hosting the show. Or the
For this first
microcosm.
episode, yes.
Yes.
But moving forward, I think we should each rotate hosting duties. That's up to
I'm
you
happy
guys.
in the background the entire time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy making snide comments while you guys are talking.
So as far as the keying, we'll just go back into it, just hit it and knock it out. As far as keying, yes, I have keyed cars. I don't just randomly key cars, but if you park so close to me that I have to get in through my passenger side to get into my vehicle, you are going to get keyed.
Let me ask you this,
and this
though.
was wait, hold on. This is the way it was before I got
Getting
married.
passionate.
I am going to get passionate about this. This is how it was before I got married. Now that I'm married and my wife was a witness to me keying a car, that pretty much ended that behavior, like, pretty quick. The thought has crossed my mind before since then, but never have I acted upon it since then.
The ACPD will not be looking into you every time somebody reports their car being keyed.
Serial keyer.
Hey, like I said, if you
So, but that was my question.
and that's the whole
was-
thing about stupid people.
My question was that, though, is like, at one point in your life, you were a car keyer.
Yes,
Now you're not, because
No, I'm in
you've-
recovery.
You've turned over the new leaf.
But it sounds like
But,
you only
yeah.
stopped because your wife got upset at you, not because you fundamentally believe cars should not be
Exactly.
keyed.
What if
That's
she would have
correct.
encouraged you? What if she been like, yeah, get him. Fuck him.
yeah, I
Fuck
would
his
have
car
kept
up.
going. I would, yeah.
So-
Wow,
I
so
have
you're
no problem.
unrepentant.
So yeah, so
I am unrepentant.
So deep
I'm
inside,
recovering, but I
you're
am
here.
unrepentant.
deep inside, you have this bloodlust for car keying every time somebody parks improperly.
And here's what
You should
I'll
get
say.
him,
It probably
get him a key. Like a key. Check him, oh, is that the key to someone's heart? No, it's the key for your car. Don't ever mess
The
with
keys
me.
to the city.
we'll call it just justice.
Oh,
And
that was
it
justice.
has taken the form of keying a car because
So,
the only
Mr.
time-
Wayne, you feel it's your responsibility to exact justice on the world, do you?
not on the world, only on jackasses who park right up on top of my car.
That's most everybody.
But since we're on this topic briefly, you also said that you keyed their car, but then you left before they did. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when they came back,
Because I would only key when leaving. I wouldn't key when I
but
arrived.
that's what we've discussed in the past. That like they don't learn the lesson because they don't know why they got keyed.
Then that's...
From their perspective, no one was parked next to them to begin with, because when they came and when they left, there was no car.
No, that's the thing, is that...
Did you leave them a note?
How would they arrive?
Did you key a note into their door?
Let's talk about your science here. Let's talk about your time and space continuum
Okay.
here. If they arrived and there was no car, and then I get there, then I'm the jackass, not them. That's what I'm saying, is that if I'm parked... and then somebody comes next to me that wasn't previously there, and they're on top of my car, yes, I will key it, and then I will leave.
What if it was a single mom with a baby that was crying, completely going crazy, and she
Justice
had to
is
get
blind,
to...
sir.
Wow.
Okay, so no, we won't go there. We could get nasty, but we won't go there. We just don't agree with you.
And that's cool.
You know?
I'm glad, because that kind of also helps me stay on the straight and narrow.
There's some guy looking for you right now.
Okay, so well, there's definitely a.
He probably got the forensics team. They're like, "Well, what's this kind of car key?" It definitely goes to a Toyota Camry.
Except I haven't keyed cars since I've been in my gold and silver Toyota Camry.
For future reference, you can do a lot more damage to someone's car with bologna than any key ever could.
Really?
You grab a piece of deli bologna and just slap it right on.
Does it have
let
to
it,
be like
let
a
it bake
hot
in the
day or
sun?
something?
Well, it could be.
What does
but
it do?
It just, whatever it does, it completely leaves a perfect hole and takes the paint right off. Bologna is that.
Antifreeze does that as well.
Bologna is that bad.
Oh, you know what you can do? You can stick a banana in their tailpipe.
Was that like in a 1980s film or something?
Axel Foley, dude. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop.
You could also
Thank
blow
you,
their
yeah.
car up and just teach them a real lesson.
Or you can just set them. We can wait till they come out and set them on fire, dude.
No, I figure a daisy cutter right by
You
their
could
front
follow them
door.
home and chainsaw them.
But all kidding aside, why not like leave them? Why not leave? Why not leave them a note and explain the situation?
That you should a really polite note.
Like you should
"Excuse
make
me."
business cards that are already pre-printed and just be like, boom, you've been Zamoroned, and just be like,
This
you
could
know,
have been a key.
well, this was a key because it's Mario, but this is why you were keyed,
No,
and
but I'm
here's a
saying
little.
No, now
it's
in the reformed
not
movie.
even keen, and just make
As
a
a warning.
sticky business or a business card in the shape of a key.
Well, now, well, now you could do that.
Now I could do that
Yeah.
as a reformed keyer. I could
But
do
you're
a
not
warning.
reformed. You're like in hibernation, waiting to be awakened.
your
You're a
heart,
beast.
your heart is not contrite.
Yeah.
You don't really mean it. You're just not. You're trying not to get in
You don't
trouble
wanna
with
get
your
caught.
wife because
Yeah, no, I've
she
got
has
my, I've got
a
my
deep
10-year
passion
token.
for this.
I've got my 10-year token. I'm not going back on this.
Is it sharp? The token.
It can take off paint, yes. All right, so one of the other things that came up when we were kind of discussing the podcast in the beginning was how we are or are not like every other guy. Who wants to start off with that part? Because I think, Rick, you might have been the one that mentioned that we're not necessarily the every guy.
Right. Yeah.
What do you see in that?
Because I mean, like with the name, we were talking about it's a guy thing, and whether or not that was a literal thing or not, and usually when people say it's a guy thing, like you're kind of precluding other people or kind of speaking to stereotypes sometimes. And obviously that's kind of the irony of the name, because it's not about that. It's like the things that
The Nerdist was already taken.
well, I don't know what that is. I'm just kidding. I know. I'm just kidding. I don't like that guy.
I'm like, dude, you're the guy that told me about these podcasts.
No, just what was the question?
How are we similar to or different from the regular guy or the everyman?
I don't know. Because I say that in all seriousness because honestly, I'm lucky enough that most of the guys that I know are different than the stereotype of guys that we think of. I mean, I guess the stereotype when I think of like guys, like it's a guy thing, bro. I think of like '80s guy. I think of Billy Zabka and like James Spader in the '80s. You know, guys that I don't know that I'll never know. Like guys that drive nice cars and have nice houses and like borrow their parents' boats. And that's kind of the stereotype, but in some levels, like there is that guy. It's that guy that's just different. And you know, I think the people we know, you know, are lucky enough that our circle of people, the kind of guys we are people that are a little bit more thoughtful and intelligent, hopefully, and creative people. I think that's interesting because you know a lot of times you'll see like in movies or whatever. I'll use movies as an example. Is you always have like the guy. It's like the star, or the main character, the lead, or whatever. And he's the only one that's usually rounded out, right? Mm-hmm. He's the one that's like sensitive, but he's also tough, and he has to be all these things because he has to go through those changes throughout the story. But the other characters, the supporting characters, are usually more one-dimensional because they're just there to support him. They're there to basically be reflections of different aspects of his personality. Yeah. And so sometimes I think that's the thing when we think about guys. We think about people that are those, like, my friend's a jock. He's a guy. He's the jock. And this guy's the nerd. And this guy's the whatever. And I think that in a way, you know, I mean, I think in general life's like that, but specifically the people we know, the people that we choose to surround ourselves with are people that are more well-rounded than that.
We're all leading men.
Mike is a perfect example. Mike's, you know, really, really avid basketball player. He's a great basketball player. He knows a lot about sports, but at the same time, he's a tech guy. He knows a lot about tech and all kinds of stuff. And then he knows about movies and music. You know what I mean? And we all have different degrees, like, you know, of a pie chart of those interests. Like, I like, you know, movies and sports and love this, and that, but it's to different degrees than you may like them or he may like them.
Right.
But the fact that we all share
most of that pie,
most of those pie pieces, which is why we all get along. And I think that's why we're kind of different, where we have things that we can relate to each other about. You know, like me and Mike maybe will talk a little bit more about sports with each other than you or him can, but you guys may be able to talk about music more than you can with me or whatever. So that's the thing that's, I think, really interesting about what we consider guys.
The every guy or the not every guy. So we're all our own male leads in our own films?
Exactly.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. My thoughts, Mike?
I mean, yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think when we talk about just guys, men in general, you know, there's the kind of people I think that also might listen to something like this are people that I think are going to fall in similar line of thinking with us. Mm-hmm. I think the movies have really helped shape the general stereotype of or even just a TV show like Saved by the Bell. You know, it's like you've got AC Slater's just the jock and Screech is the nerd and Zach's the cool guy, you know, and everybody's like, who would you rather be the most? Like, everyone always wants to be Zach the most because he's just the cool guy. Nobody ever volunteers to be Screech because no matter how smart he is, you know, he has this whole other side of his personality. And so I think when we talk about stereotypical guys, I think the negative side of that, the negative connotation is those kind of guys that we encounter that kind of go back to the whole thing about things we dislike, which is, you know, the ones that, like Rick said, have just they appear or they perpetuate the one-dimensional personality. You know, it's like, you know, being a really aggressive personality or being insensitive to whatever the thing is. And so maybe just think a little harder, use a little intelligence, ask questions instead of being a know-it-all. And I think, you know, and it's just one of those things, like I have a gym membership and I don't go nearly enough to justify what I pay in it. Whether I paid $10 or way more than that, I certainly don't justify it. But when I go, some way, somehow, I always see the same people, always. And it blows my mind how some of these people are there. And a couple of times, some of them will see me and they kind of talk to me and they're kind of nice guys about it. But I'll ask them, you know, like, you know, wow, how often do you come here? Like, I'm here every day, man. This is every day. You got to want it. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about right there. And he'd be like, how are you doing, man? How are your goals doing? You know, I mean, there's a really great personal fitness trainer here. You want to talk to him? I can give you his stuff, man. He's got good rates. You know,
the guy's like veins are coming out of his neck while he's talking to
exactly,
you.
You know,
his
and
muscles
it's like
are flexing.
He's got a torn
because apparently that's what it's all about. You're not just, it's not good enough to be active. Not good enough to just get off the couch and have fun doing stuff. You got to be ripped. You got to be shredded. You got to be a P90Xer, you know.
Yeah, and like I don't go to a gym at all, so my only
not that there's anything wrong with that. But I'm just saying that that's
my only like kind of experience with that is just like skimming through Instagram. And you kind of like skim through like the random pictures and, you know, whatever's popular, and there's a ton of that, right? And it's men and women. I mean, that's what's it's not like picking on one group. It's like men and women do. It's like there's those girls that have those pictures, and they're like these fit women or whatever that means, right? And it's not like they're just not like, oh, she looks like, you know, she doesn't have a giant camel toe or like, you know, big flappy like mushy butt, right? It's like she's got muscles on muscles, and there's like no like veins coming out, and it's like, And the guys are the same way. And you look at, and you'll like click on their pictures, and it's like, and that's what they talk about. You say like all these losers in the gym that like aren't dedicated, or this and that, and it's exactly what you're talking about. And that's exactly why I don't ever go to gyms, other than being lazy. Is that the times I have, I walk in there and I'm like, how do you get from point A, which is me, into like point B, which is that person? Not that I want to be that person,
right?
But it's like, what's the middle ground? Because you're like on the treadmill, and I'm like huffing and puffing, and I look next to me, and there's this like 60-year-old lady who's like chilling, doing her thing, and she's just she's trying to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
And there's that, and then there's that guy who looks like he's always been fit.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not true. Maybe he came in and he looked like me, but it's like I can't see that middle ground, so it's like sometimes it's hard to even imagine being there, and it's intimidating.
Point. Yeah.
And again, like you said, not because I'm just mad because some guy's in better shape than me. Is that usually those type of people throw off that aura of like, what are you doing here? You know, like when you're trying to like, read the directions on the side of like the weight machine, and you're trying to figure it out and not feel like an idiot.
And I think that's the thing I think about the most that goes in the back of my head is that, in all honesty, like, would those people, if they stopped going for a year, would they become 40, 50 pounds overweight, which is probably about where I'm at? And would they have that, or would they probably be active in other ways if the gyms didn't exist? And should the gyms really be populated with the guys you see from dodgeball at, Vince Vaughn's gym? Those are that's the everyman, the every woman, that's, the people that aren't shredded, the people that, all go to work every day and think the same things we do. Because I've always made this joke where it's like, well, I need to get in shape so that I can get in shape. Yeah. Because, like Rick will invite me to go play the Irish football stuff, and I'm like, but it looks hardcore. And so I feel like I'm not ready yet. I need to like get in shape for 3 months before I can go out there and run for that. Or if we're going to go play flag football, even just once, I'm like,
same thing at a stairwell.
Right. So that, the fitness craze, which is wonderful. I think, with our country being the way it is, with people all around the world, it's wonderful to, it's funny how the diversity gets lost, and we have a lot of people that I think have that. Maybe it's a mixture of addictive personality and also a little bit of that obsessiveness where there isn't enough room to get a lot of things done, so you find one thing and get really, really good at it. So in a lot of ways, I envy those people because I have my hands in so many interests that I'll get anything done.
Yeah.
Whereas at least they set one goal, and the goal is I'm going to be in the best shape of my life, and they accomplish it. So in a lot of ways, I definitely don't fit in that category, but I'm envious of it in a positive way.
I do. I don't want to generalize your answers, but like, do you ever get the feeling though when you see some of those people? Because we have to like differentiate. Like, there's people that like our friend Jeff, who like is in shape. Jeff's not like a ripped guy, but he's in shape. He runs like marathons and shit, right?
Right.
And that's a different type of thing. Like, my mom trains for like 5Ks. To stay healthy because she's like 60 years old. You know what I mean? And we're not talking about that type of person who's like, I'm staying fit, I'm staying healthy, I'm trying to like watch myself, Mm-hmm. There's those people that throw off that different vibe, but like you said, they're doing it for a different reason. And I don't know. And I don't know, it's like, I guess it's like anything else. It's like when you go pick up basketball, it's like you play and you're good and you appreciate playing against people that are talented, but at the same time, if some NBA guy walks out and starts dunking on your head, it takes some of the fun out of it.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And that's the kind of vibe I get from sometimes those kind of characters when you see them, and you're like, what? Like you said, what is the goal? Like,
well, you walk up to the machine and you have to change it from 3,000 pounds to 50.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like that,
and then as soon as you walk away, someone's like, 50.
I'm not completely knocking it because I get. Like you said, being devoted to something and being a positive thing, and that's fine.
Oh yeah.
But
definitely.
I guess it's just hard for me because I don't have that type of personality. It's hard for me to identify with that because when I see like, okay, like I love The Rock. The Rock's a great actor in my opinion. He's gonna win an Oscar someday. Put that on tape. But
no comment.
And you see his Instagram, and it's usually him working out. Mm-hmm. Looking like a monster. Do you follow him on Instagram?
No, I don't. But I have seen pictures.
But most of his pictures are him working out like a monster. But they're usually like evened out with pictures with him at the gym, and he might be in the gym in a different country or here, or whatever. And it's like there'll be these kids that are there, like teenagers, and they might be just regular kids or kids that have
underprivileged
or kids that have special needs, and they're there and they're working out and they're trying to build self-esteem or they're trying to get healthy, and he's there and you see him, and I'm assuming that's his real persona. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt.
Supportive.
And he's supportive. He's like, look at this. He's like, this guy is strong. This guy's, strong in a different way.
Right.
And for him, still, his body is his livelihood. Mm-hmm. The guy is like, he's an action movie star. So it behooves him to look that way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas guy at the gym who's falling out of his tearing out of his clothes, like, I'm like, I always wonder, I'm like, unless you're like one of these guys that pulls tractor trailers, and is trying to
like,
get
what's
like a
the
Metrics like sponsorship. Like, I want to ask him, like, what do you do with your muscles? I guess that's the question. I'm like taking a long way around. I'm like, what do you do with those muscles? And it's like it's easy to say like, oh, he's got a small dick. Like, it's easy to say that and like make fun of that. But I'm like, what is it? What is it about you that like?
Do you think it's like an obsession, like a compulsion? Like
it might be, and
maybe missing.
And I think Mike touched on that, and maybe that's what it is, and I'm okay with that because it's like maybe if that guy wasn't, doing his 20th set of like 150 pounds, maybe he would be like doing on his 20th set of like freaking like Oreos, and he'd be 400 pounds and like hooked up to a machine. So if that's the case, fine.
Yeah,
I support you, my friend. Or he might be, doing the same thing except with drugs or with beating his wife or something,
just something filling that need. At least it's something constructive.
Yeah. And maybe that's the prick in me, but sometimes I think like, no, that's not the case. Because I don't know if you've ever seen, like, sometimes you see those guys and you think like, oh, this guy was probably a great athlete. I bet you if you took him out on your basketball team, he'd be amazing, or have him play football. And you see some of these people like that, and they're zero coordination.
Yeah.
These guys are like worst athletes
because they can't bend because their muscles are so big.
I mean, just because they're not. I mean, like
they're all muscle and
I don't know if you ever watched like Eastbound and Down, but like there's like a Kenny Powers joke where he's like, exercising isn't a sport.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And sometimes I think it's like
people,
and that's me being a dick, but people think that I'm exercising, so I'm an athlete.
Yeah,
right. And that's not the same, right? I mean, you're an athlete. Like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, getting in shape is a professional sport now. Being able to be shredded. And I think a lot of that stuff also ties into, the Instagram thing and the Facebook thing. Whatever other social medias where, the word selfie got added to the dictionary last year, and we've seen more people take pictures of themselves, us included. I've taking shots, with my camera phone pointed at me. And every time I do it, for whatever reason, if it's silly or if I'm actually doing it, I somewhere in the back of my head feel ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I also am aware of it, and I realize there's a whole other percentage of the population that is their way of fulfilling that intrinsic narcissism that I think we need. I think going to the gym in an obsessive way to show off, not to accomplish any real other goal besides the goal itself, working out to serve itself. I think, there's just this unmet need of people to just be about themselves, be about me. In a lot of ways, sometimes, whether it's male or female, just taking that stuff to that extreme. Like, I mean, and some of the more brilliant video games or movies will touch on the cultural things going on. And like the most recent Grand Theft Auto 5, there's this girl that's there just always working out, and you run into her randomly, and she's just always hardcore working out.
And you have to race?
Yes, you have to race her. And she's always working out. Like, they put that stereotype in there on purpose because there's that person, guy or girl, it could have been either one, is just hardcore about this working out stuff. But it applies to so many things, and I think maybe that's the whole thing about talking about, guys or girls and typical whatever and stereotypical things, is that there's still no shortage of those one-dimensional people, even if the hardcore workout person likes to go to movies too, and they like music as well and stuff like that. That ends up being the thing that they always use to define them, and that's kind of like that'll be the first thing you'll see on their bio. It's like hardcore. And again, this is probably the most innocent thing to. This is the most innocent thing to pick on, because of all things you probably should.
Applaud.
This is the one thing that, if anyone's going to have any kind of compulsion, being in healthy shape is probably the best thing.
It's like anti-bullying now, because we're at a time when, not that it ever was, but it's very politically incorrect to bully people that are, whatever people are that get bullied when you're a kid. scrawny kids or kids that are special or kids are this or whatever it is. And we know that. Let's not pretend that wasn't true, that there was a time when those are the people that got made fun of. Right? And now you can't do that, because if you're that guy now, if the three of us were at a restaurant or a bar somewhere and somebody with a disability came in and one of us made fun of them, we would go, "Oh, you're a prick."
Yeah.
We wouldn't go, "Oh, yeah," and then like openly mock this person and make them feel horrible about themselves. That's gone. Like, if there was ever a time when that was socially acceptable, it's definitely gone now.
Yeah.
So it's like we're kind of going the other way, and like, let's make fun of people that there's nothing wrong with. It's like, let's make them feel like shit for being like caring about their body and their life. But on the same token, there's a reason why there's mirrors in gyms.
Right.
And it's not to check your form, right? They'll say, "I'm checking my form, bro."
Right.
Like, no, because when you'll do it, right? It's kind of, you feel voyeuristic. You're in a gym and you watch somebody watch themselves, and you're like licking your lips, like you're enjoying yourself,
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and I guess at the end of the day, the question is: are there far worse things our society could be completely into? And again, it's really more of a opinion, subjective. But I also think sometimes there's merit to it. I think sometimes we don't have to be so diplomatic, and we can be like, that's a little too much, because that ends up correlating more often than not to the personality as well. That ends up correlating to when you bump into them at the club accidentally and you hit them and they're like, "Where are you going, man? Watch your fucking step."
Yeah,
because
and that's the only. Sometimes, again, we're
generalizing.
We're generalizing people,
Yeah.
but you think, is that the only function of that form?
Right.
Which is like, this is what it's for, so that when someone bumps into me, I have this armor around me. Right. Or if I'm at the concert and we know that guy, the guy who puts his hands on the rails and gets his girlfriend between him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna fucking move, and if you touch me, I'm gonna get mad," and that whole thing. It's like. And we even talk about that.
Who are the guys that get in the mosh pits? It's
exactly.
always the ripped guys.
It's not some scrawny little 20-pound kid. It's like the skinny girl who shouldn't be there.
Right.
And I say that because they get stepped on, and they have to get carried out, all that bit, and that's for real. And the meatheads. And, and we even, like, on some tiny level take part in that, because we talk about when we were kids and you get in the mosh pit and you're tiny and you get pushed around by these old 40-year-old men that are like 300 pounds. But now as adults, we don't get in mosh pits. That's not even cool to do that anymore. But we say, there's an upside to being 220 pounds. That people can't push you around when you're standing in front of a crowd anymore.
Right.
You can stand there, and it's not about being tough guy. It's about going, I literally weigh twice as much as you, and you can't move me if you push me. So there's some empowerment to that. So on some level... Definitely. I think can kind of relate to the... So I'm backtracking on everything. I'm backtracking. You're right. Let's get shredded.
So tomorrow we're going to start our program, day 1 of insanity. All three of us.
That's what this is all about. It's insanity.
If you'd like to purchase these DVDs from us as well, you can get them at a discount.
So we're already monetizing.
We're naming the podcast. It's an app thing.
We should just buy that right now, just in case, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole other subset of cultural obsessions that we could touch on. That
I'm hoping we
fall into the stereotype.
Let's touch everything.
Let's
touch all of our obsessions.
That's what I think the goal should be, is touch on everything that either we love or we hate, which should cover everything that exists.
Well, you mentioned comic books. You can't mention comic books and guys or girls and not already have it in your head what kind of person you're talking about.
Right.
There's a general stereotype that people will associate with that, or if they're a video game player, or
even though
they're into a certain type of TV show.
Even though I think, rather with that, I think contrary to that, though, even though there's a stereotype for it, like you said, most of our group is very similar, and I'm sure we all either participate in reading comics or graphic novels or own action figures or love Star Wars or things that would be stereotypical of something, but we don't necessarily fit that stereotype. Sure. Which I think, to me, kind of on the contrary of what we were saying earlier, kind of feeds into we are kind of the every guy. Because we do enjoy different pieces of that pie at different levels, and yet we don't really fulfill a stereotype except for this new one that we've created of the every guy.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, that is the lead in the movie. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that we're for better or worse, because of social media and technology and all of that, it's easier to have 20 hobbies now. Mm-hmm. There was a time when you couldn't. When you were a kid, it's like you kind of had to choose your, pick your obsessions. It's like when we were kids, there wasn't the internet. There wasn't whatever. It's like you go to North Star Mall and there's like Heroes and Fantasies, and there's like the collectible store where they have like the baseball cards or whatever. So that's what I'm saying. You had to choose that. It's like as a kid, you're like, Mom, take me to the comic store, or I would say, Mom, take me to the baseball card store, and that was really it. Or take me to Sound Warehouse.
Well, that's and that's how your culture began as a kid, because if you went and got a comic at the store, that's issue number 13. So now I got to get back issues 1 through 12, and I got to stay all the way through and see the series to the end. Before you know it, you're compelled, because most of the storylines are well written, or they will appeal to some audience. Whereas if you go to the the Foot Locker, and that's the first thing you do when you get your first set of $120 Nikes as a 10-year-old. Well, now you want the next set that comes out. Now you want the next Air Jordans, and now that is part of your culture, Or if you go to, like you said, the collectible store, you start collecting that stuff for toy trains, and all of a sudden, that's your whole world, because you only have so much space in your bedroom. You have a 9x8 bedroom, or a 10x10, or 2x2 if you're lucky. I mean, whatever your bedroom size is. There's only so much room.
I slept under the bed.
There's only so much room for your passions and your love, and there's only so much room on your wall for posters, and you're going to put up things that you're proud of, or someone left an impression on you and took you to your first rock concert or your first football game, or bought you your first collectible, and that's the thing. Or like you said, a CD, it's like someone gets you that first CD of whatever artist it is, and then you're like, well, now I need the other ones, and so all of a sudden, how many hours are in the day between going to school and trying to make friends and, eating your dinner and watching general TV? I mean, that's kind of how it starts, I think. And
I think that's our compulsion. That's our obsession. Rather than being the meatheads, we're the guys that, and I think I can speak for all three of us, we are just collectors of stuff. And like thinking ahead of one of the topics I wanted to discuss is action figures. Earlier I was talking to myself about it. I was having an internal would it be a dialogue or a monologue? Internal dialogue, right?
Monologue. Well, it's dialogue if you're answering your own questions, I guess.
Then it was an internal dialogue. I was looking around and I was like, why do I own these? They don't do anything for me. I'm not going to sell them.
Do you answer yourself honestly, or do you...
I do.
You say what you want to hear. No, Mario, this is a great idea.
No, I eventually got to the point where I was like, I really have no answer. I really have no answer for why I'm compelled to put money into this.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't, I don't get it.
So what?
But I have this obsession. I have this collection kind of thing where it's like in my blood. Where, like Mike said, I have to have this. I have to have all of this.
So do you think that's specific to, again, like you're talking about action figures, for example? Mm-hmm. Now, if you lived in a city or you were cut off from technology and the only thing you had access to was tools, say like a tool shop or a hardware store, do you think because of your personality you would say, I'm addicted to tools now, I'm like Tim the Tool Man?
I would have to assume
I need a better saw. I need a more hardcore chainsaw.
I would have to assume it would. I would have to assume that it's not what I'm collecting that's the obsession, it's the obsession itself. Mm-hmm. It's that personality type, that driving force that no matter what it is, and us all being jacks of all trades to a degree can each appreciate that, and hopefully a lot of our listeners can too. I think the people that we would maybe appeal to would feel that same way as well, where I went through phases. I mean, and I'll be the first one to say, I've spent a lot of money doing stupid stuff that I'm probably never going to do again, and a part of me is like, oh, I'm glad I can say that I did this. However, looking back, it's kind of geeky.
So what's the geekiest or...
Flint napping.
Oh. What is that?
Flint napping is taking...
You know, don't you?
I do know.
He knows.
That was my real response to him saying it.
So Flint napping, for those
this is
who
like
don't
a
know,
step above keying cars in terms of acceptable behavior.
Arrowhead making. Making arrowheads out of rock or volcanic rock or whatever. And I learned how to do it.
Like Andy Dufresne making a chessboard out of soapstone in prison?
Sure.
Okay.
But I got good at it, and like my mom.
So arrowhead making.
Arrowhead making.
Why is it called Flint napping?
Why does it have to have a name like that?
Well, it's
LARPing.
It's supposed to be like you get flint rock, which is the best thing to make an arrowhead out of because it's sharp. It's really sharp. It's not like limestone where you can't really break it easily and it doesn't shard in a particular way. But flint is actually, I think it's like decomposed sea life that has crystallized, and because of its crystalline structure, you can make an arrowhead out of it and make sharp edges, and it's just easier in the way it breaks.
So I missed out on a really awesome opportunity for Christmas for you. I could have just gotten you a ton of rock.
Rocks.
Not this time when we moved, but the previous time that we moved.
Rocks I found.
I actually had a box of rocks.
I remember that.
And it was
it's like when I
huge box
first
of
met
rocks.
you. I was like, went to his house. I'm like, hey, like I just meeting the guy. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, he's just giving us a tour of the apartment. He's like, oh, check this out. And he like takes me into the patio. I'm like, what's the box of rocks for? And he's like, oh, I make arrowheads with my mom. I'm like, okay.
And what did you honestly think of him at that
I was
time?
like, it's a box of rocks. That's honestly like that was the extent of my judging. Was like, it's a box of rocks.
That's it, really?
Like,
He was nice enough at that time. We didn't know each other
I
well
didn't know
enough for
him,
him to...
so I didn't want to like. I was like, maybe he's special.
I'm impressed. I was about to say how impressed I was with you, but I knew there was an angle. So there it is.
So fast forward to when we moved from that apartment, and the moving guy was like, God, what the fuck you got in here? A box of rocks?
And you're like, yes.
And I did not tell him honestly that, yes, you are pretty much moving a couple hundred pounds of rocks.
Again, like you said, there's all kinds of things that people can be interested in and you can take interest in, especially, and I'm being serious here, like, especially if it's something you can share with people. Like, it's something you had done with your mom, right?
Right.
So that's cool. I'm not knocking that because I get... Any
Stuff
way
that you can bond over.
way that we can relate or bond to the people about stuff is a positive thing. As long as it's a positive thing, like not you bonding with your mom about
Killing
like
people.
selling drugs or being serial killers, but something positive that's constructive. At least on some level. So that's okay. That's okay. So I can be okay with
However,
the flint napping.
But here's the thing, though. Me looking back is the same thing as the action figures, where I'm like, I have a bunch of like we went on digs.
Yeah.
And we have collections of arrowheads and different things that have been dated back to certain times. And we're like, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, why do I have this?
Yes.
How did this happen?
See, in the line,
I'm not going to sell them. I'm not going to find an idiot to buy them.
And you're right. Part of it is, at some point, and it's usually what you said, occupying space. Once it becomes the point where you're like, does the actual tangible space that this stuff occupies, is the value of that space better spent on something else? That's when you can move on. And obsessive or not, like I think that's when everyone gets to that point when you go, okay, I have too many comic books. I need to have shoes for my job. Time for the comic books to go somewhere. Right. So we're still good with it. We're still good there. The line that I'm glad we didn't get to is like to be, if you were going to be like, well, we made flint like arrowheads and then we would stash them in state parks and then like sell them to people and like sell them on the internet. Like if you were gonna go like we profited from them in some
just
fraudulent
to say there
way.
are some people that
I know
that do that. But not only that, but there are people that make arrowheads that they honestly say I made this, but they'll sell them for like ridiculous amounts of money.
Like I don't
for other people that collect the same thing.
So like basically like
no, that's where I eventually got to is I don't get it anymore.
And I guess that's the kind of thing is. At some point, I think us three, are going to have to just go out on a limb and say, these are my convictions, and I think on a merit-based level, some of these things, because I like to think that we're are not acceptable, but I'm trying to think of the right word, because I'm not a judgmental person at all when it comes to those kind of things, but it's sort of like you were just saying, what is the why, what is the outcome, and I think maybe if it's just simple as having an interest, and it doesn't matter what it is, I mean, there are people that collect bugs, and the bugs just sit there in the terrariums, and they're just there, like, these are my bugs, this is what they do, and I know everything about the inner working of these bugs, and I collect slimy worms out of the ground. I mean, I don't understand it, but that's the whole point is I think because we have such a general interest level in pop culture and, maybe that's the question is, is there such a thing as, the things a generally well-rounded person should be interested in? Is there a definition to what's cool and what's not cool? Because it's easy to say, well, being a violent person is not cool. Being a stupid person is not cool. Being a, over-muscled meathead is not cool. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but is it not cool to be a bug collector as a 35-year-old male? Is it not cool to be a Flint Napper.
Flint Napper.
Yes.
So,
You know?
so on the subject of that, I'll go too. But let me ask you. So, what is something you collected or something you're obsessed with that, looking back, you're not quite as proud of?
Oh, easily. The thing that, because it's still here, it's here in the house. It's upstairs in our little closet. Is during the Star Wars prequels when those came out. My friend Johnny and I, when I think it was not when Phantom Menace in '99 came out, but in 2002 when Clones came out, he and I just got obsessed with buying all of the action figures, and I think part of it was sort of a reclamation of youth that we didn't get to have all of the original 1977 box action figures, because as adults you don't buy the action figures and take them out of the box and play with them.
No,
you buy them, they stay in pristine condition. Now, it wasn't about hardcore, about like keeping the cardboard, but literally Johnny and I would like go to like Toys R Us, and we're in 2002 we were 22 and 23, so we're already out of college, we're adults, and so we're lining up at the Toys R Us at 30 minutes before it opens up, and I still to this day remember. But he and I were both obsessed. Like, our collections were getting pretty close to, being not complete, just having all the necessary figures we wanted. Yeah. But neither one of us had a Yoda, and I very much remember. And it was Johnny who initiated it. Sorry to throw you into the bus, buddy. But like the doors opened, they opened the doors, and he literally like ran, just took off, and. And he's such a tall, big guy. It was amazing to watch him move so limberly. And he like left me in the dust, and it compelled me to kind of jog too. Like, you start getting that envious, jealous feeling. Like, well, I don't want him to find the one, and then I don't find one too. But he found one, and then found another one hiding like behind like 10 random whatever that nobody wants. And he's like, he got me one too. And I just remember like this amazing feeling of satisfaction of like, we did it. We accomplished what we set out to do. Goal. And this wasn't something I did as a 20-year-old. As a 10-year-old or a little kid. This is 22, 23, already trying to find a job, trying to get serious about life, but I'm still spending the money. And I can't remember how much they cost, but they had to be anywhere from $4 to $6 a piece. And I remember spending, what at that time seemed like a lot of money. And I look back on that and I'm like, they're all up in a box, up in a closet, doing nothing. They're just there. But here's the funny part. Would I part with them? Would I get rid of them? If someone offered me money, would I sell them? Or would this little memory, the little story I told, is enough sentimentality to hold on to them? Because I don't have the story like this for 10,000 other things. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's the one thing that I look at and I'm like you said too, I don't regret it, but it was ridiculously silly. Right. Absolutely silly and unnecessary, and there's no value added to my life up there with those action figures. They're just sitting there.
Physical things.
But I really think, if you start getting into the psychology of these kind of things, it really, for me at least, I don't know about Johnny, but for me for sure, it was absolutely just this recapturing a youth thing. Because what did we want as kids more than anything else? Toys. Was to get every toy we wanted. Yeah. And just, the American way is we don't just want one Transformer, we want them all, And so as a little kid, I'm like, well, I only have like 5 Star Wars action figures from the original ones. Now I'm going to get 30 to prove a point that I can because I've got a credit card, And so
that's the dangerous part.
But no, I'm not ashamed of those action figures. I just look back and I'm like, that was really, really silly. But luckily I don't have anything else that eclipses that. So you go, Rick.
I think the first thing that comes to mind, so I'll stick with that, was baseball cards. And the reason, and it's funny because recently same thing. I'm getting to that point now where I live in a very small apartment and it's overflowing with stuff. Some of it's junk, some of it's just not in the right place. And every time I see my mom's kind of doing this cleaning thing too, where she's slowly like pushing stuff on me that she's had in her closet for years. So every time I go to her house, she's like, "Oh, here's a box I found," and and it's very politely saying, "Take this shit
Take it out.
and get it out of my house." And I'll take it. I'm like, "Cool, what's in there?" And I'll take it home and I'll open it up and I'll find some weird shit I had when I was a kid. And not that long ago, she gave me this box and it's full of baseball cards. And I brought it home, and at first I kind of popped it up, and I was like, "Oh, cool, that's neat. I haven't seen this in like 15 years." And then I immediately thought, "Wow, that's that much space I no longer have in my apartment. Because what am I going to do?" So anyway, so looking back, that's one thing that definitely pops up because as a kid, I didn't like baseball. Didn't watch baseball. I sucked at baseball, and but I bought baseball cards like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I should say I had my parents buy them for me like crazy, my stepmom and my mom specifically. And it's funny because I remember going to like a couple of card shows or going to some of the collectible stores and like buying these cards and not even getting it, like not even being concerned with, you know, the value of them or who these guys were. This is my favorite player, or this and that. It just to have something that belonged to me, you know. And I'm too lazy to be a completist about anything, but like just to have something that I could say, yeah, this is something I'm into. And again, like going back to what you said about psychology, I could definitely see that because one, it was a way for me to identify with other kids that I knew at school that maybe I didn't have a lot of stuff to relate to. So they were collecting baseball cards. Like, well, I'll collect baseball cards. That way we can have something to talk about. Or your neighbor. Or, you know, my older cousin, you know, he was a really big influence on me growing up. And that was one of the things. He collected baseball cards. And so I would collect baseball cards, you know, and he would give me some of his. And so it was something that, like, let me feel like I had somewhat of an identity for, you know, being 8 or 9 years old. Like, at that point, you don't have an identity. You're kind of forming it as you go. But definitely looking back, now I can, you know, I can look back and go, wow, that was kind of silly, you know, like, but at the same time, I can't knock it because, you know, it was, there was a point even where, like, my stepmom got into it with me where she was like, hey, there's a little show coming up. I'll take you over there. And she would take me and, you know, and spend, I mean, it wasn't my money. Like, she was spending money on me. My dad was spending money. Because she found a way to bond with you. Yeah, exactly. So I can appreciate the full scale of it. But at the same time, I look back, and I was telling Jeff recently, I was texting them pictures of these cards I found. And I was like, what is this? Like, who are these guys? Like, and there was guys I knew because, you know, you just like some guy. Like, I never watched baseball, but I like Will Clark. He played for the Giants, San Francisco Giants. Like, I love this guy. I don't know why. Right. He just looks cool, and I have all the shitload of his cards, you know? And there's guys that I just didn't like. I'm like, that guy looks like a dick. I want to get rid of his card, you know? Yeah. And that was the extent of my identification with these cards. But it's funny now because I look at these cards now, and I appreciate what they represent to me. Right. But at the same time, I look at it, I'm like, this looks like just a bunch of child molesters. A bunch of guys with handlebar mustaches and giant rim glasses. Porn stash, you know, and that's it. And
and Tommy Lasorda.
Would you get rid of them?
No. And that's that's the thing. Is like I will not, cannot throw them away.
And see, I think I ask myself about things like that, you know, because the Star Wars action figures isn't the only collectible things I have. I have other collectible stuff in that genre and other things too. But the thing is, with the term vintage, you know, is that society planting that little thing on us where things that are brand new cost a ton of money and things that are old and ratty falling apart cost even more. Yeah. You know, because they're old. It's like normally when you find something that's old and you throw it away, now it's become a premium, you know, like, you know, in everything. It's like, you know, the classic cars or the way the sports jerseys used to look, and now they look, you know, more ridiculous, and you're like, oh, I want to get like right now I really want to find a Tim Duncan jersey from the way they used to look, because the NBA is bringing this influx of new jerseys, and most of them I don't like the way they look, and I'm like, if I was a little kid, would I think they were super cool? Because, you know, there's a camo jersey, and there's the sleeve jerseys now and all this stuff where it's just got the Spur logo, it doesn't even have the full team name on it with just the number, and I'm like, is that we get to this certain generation where we're like, you took away what I started with, so I don't like change. I'm resistant to change. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, but I got to have one of those old jerseys because, not because it's going to be worth something, but because for me now, I'll have that
connection to
that connection, to like, I own one of those jerseys that's no longer in existence anymore. And of course, there's so many better things for me to do with my money, and most of all, I should be saving it, because it's probably going to cost at least double what they cost when they first were available. And I'm like, why is this on my mind? But there I am opening up eBay windows and, you know, looking for a Tim Duncan classic jersey. And I do this with a ton of stuff where every now and then something will remind me about it. You know, like I also have a Hot Wheels collection of cars that's at my mom's house, which somewhere she misheard that I didn't want them, and so she had my nephews open them up.
Oh, man. They were unopened?
Unopened.
Wow.
Yeah, so that in and of itself, and see how y'all both react? Imagine me.
Yeah.
I'm still not over it. In fact, I'm so not over it that I've been on eBay looking for lots of, like, you know, a lot like a lot of 100, a lot of 50
Yeah.
of unopened things, and I'm like, oh, this costs a ton, to like get these, and I'm like, but I'll do it just so that I can have them and say they were mine for myself, and just forget about those versus trying to recollect them from my nephews and be like, hey, let me check out your little card collection.
Put it in your pocket.
Yeah,
Shit.
but
God.
yeah, stuff like that drives me crazy, and it's like, it's an innocent mistake, but it's really more my fault than anything else leaving them over there. But those are the things that eat me up. They keep me up at night, and I'm like, how do I reclaim that? Why is it so important for me to have that back? Yeah. Why is it so important for me to reclaim that thing? So these little obsessions, it could be anything. It could be, arrowheads. It could be Hot Wheels and, baseball cards. I had basketball cards, a ton of them. Not only did I have the basketball cards, I had the basketball magazines because they had covers on them, and those caught the Beckett magazines that had all the prices of what the cards were worth.
Yeah,
man,
those had their own value to them.
That had their own value in this, and then of course when there were error cards, and that was a big deal to collect those. So you always thought, was that on purpose? Was that a market?
However, if you look back, like if you look at those cards that may have been worth something back then, if you look at them now in a current Beckett, they're not worth anything.
No, everything has the plateau. The plateau hit a long time ago, and now everything's back to a nominal level where those are concerned.
And that's the thing is like that stuff that you had then, and that was again that for me too. That was always conscious where you're like, oh, if you have so and so's Ricky card, it's worth $5, and you tell yourself, as a 10-year-old, like,
now,
dude, when I'm 20, it's gonna be worth $1,000.
Well, because we got tricked into that.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a time where, like, with the Fantastic Four issue #1 was $14,000.
Yeah,
and we grew up with that.
So you
that
assumed
mentality.
every #1 at some point would be worth that.
Exactly, and then fast forward to the '90s, and I'm going to buy every #1 that I can from this brand new comic company, Image. I'm going to buy Spawn #1. I'm going to buy this #1,
and they're worth nothing.
They're worth $5 now. If that, some of them aren't even worth the cover price.
Yeah.
Because there was a flood, because they flooded the market with
but that's and I'm being derogatory by saying nerds, because there are the nerds ruin that though. It's like they saturated the market with things that had value. Putting it's almost like in futures, value? Like investment futures. It's like someone going, what they do now. Like I said, the only thing that's worth shit is error cards, misprints, and variants, which is like a stupid thing, right? Because what do? It's like you buy a new comic, you go, oh, here's #1 of Adventures of Mike, and then you go, oh, well, there's 6 covers, and you got to have them all. And only one of them's actually worth money. The rest of them are worth nothing.
And the one that came with a certificate isn't worth dick.
And that's the thing. But it's like that's not. And yes, that was created in response to a demographic. People they knew there's collectors. They know that people rapidly collect this shit and pay money for this. So like, wow, instead of having one comic that's worth $5,000, you can have 20 comics that are worth $2,000 each. Yeah. Or whatever the number is.
And they drove away the scarcity, which is what made the old Golden Age comic issue #1 so important, was because of that scarcity. Because of, like Mike said, family that, oh, well, it's been in the attic, I'm going to throw it away. And then you find out later that they just threw away like $6 million worth of stuff.
But I also think there's this unspoken culture of cool where somewhere along the line it got to be determined that those just weren't cool anymore. Because I still think scarcity or flooded, well, obviously if anything's saturated, it's not going to have value. But there's certain things that you can still get your hands on a ton of classic things. And you go on eBay, and they're a crap load. One of them I found out was like Nintendo and Super Nintendo cartridges. Oh, yeah. If you're trying to find certain cartridges of certain games, they are ridiculous in prices. Like I'm trying to find I can't find it in the house. I cannot find my Super Contra Alien Wars for Super Nintendo, which is a super fun game to play with only as 2 players. You cannot play one player. The game is impossible. It's way too hard. You have to have a running partner, and you have to set it to the mode where you can't shoot each other, because why would that even be? Yeah. And I can't find the cartridge, so I've been going on eBay trying to find it, and it's like anywhere from $35 to $60. And then there's this whole other world where there's like unopened with an 85 rating. I'm like, what does an 85 rating mean? And it's like $700. And so, there's apparently some like system of rating video games where they're unopened, but they can rate one opened game from another unopened game and give it a number. So like one's a 92 and it's $1,200. One's at $85 and it's $700.
Probably the condition of the box itself.
It's exactly what it's being rated on. I was learning about this just reading people's eBay descriptions.
That's a throwback to the
crazy.
comics. Well, that's a throwback to the comics because there's a rating scale for comics as well. It's like poor, fair, good, better, mint, near mint, or near mint and then mint and then super mint or whatever. And yeah, it was the same idea. It was well, is it dog-eared? Is there dents where the staples went in? Is there anything that would deteriorate from the look of it? And yeah, there's this whole way that they scale it, and you could have, like we were talking about earlier, you could have a mint copy of Fantastic Four issue number 1 that's worth some exorbitant amount, and then the next person has the same thing and it's near mint technically, but there's a dog-eared page and it's like a tenth of what that is worth. So that throwback to that way of grading things has gotten into everything.
But that's I guess that's that filters into everything, because as soon as
you want the best.
Well, it's not just that, but as soon as money becomes, or money gets into the equation, it ruins all of that, because that's what that is. Because it's like now it's like, someone buys, I'm gonna buy 2 comics. One's for me to read and one's for me to put away. And that kind of thing is like the grading thing. It's like the stupidest thing is like, you gotta get it graded. You gotta send it off and pay money more than the shit's worth,
and cross your fingers that it won't get screwed up in the mail.
And then hopefully, and then they encase it in some shit you can never open again.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you have to, like I said, you have to hope it's worth something. Otherwise, you just spent $40 on nothing.
Yeah.
Because even if it is diamond graded, blah blah blah, whatever it is, it's like, it's still a shitty comic. It's still the Savage Dragon with stupid looking feet, it doesn't fucking matter.
Would my coolness or my value to you guys as friends or my esteem in not even society, let's just say you guys, that my friends and some of the other guys, would it improve if we're sitting here and on the wall I had a Picasso and I tell you guys it's authentic and I show you like the certificate of authenticity? I'm like, it doesn't. Let's say I don't talk about how much I paid for it, but it's up there on the wall. And I'm like, look at my Picasso painting. It's up to that is a real one. It was actually, and I got it from whatever. And we won't talk about money because that's a sensitive subject. You don't talk about that always, with certain things like how much do all of us make per year. But it's up there. And now, do you guys drive home and you're like, wow, Mike owns a Picasso? Like, that's amazing. He is beyond, he is on another level. This guy's big time. He's operating on this whole other level. Or did I just become the collector version of the Jim Meathead? Or the stockbroker Wall Street type from Boiler Room, or whatever. Did I just put myself in another category?
I'd say a little bit of both for me,
right?
Because as an art fan and as a fan of his work, I would be impressed. And then from the regular guy kind of aspect, I'd be like, okay, Mike's got a small dick, whatever.
You just reminded me of Anthony Michael Hall in Breakfast Club, where Judd Nelson's tearing the books or whatever, and she's like, and then Anthony Michael Hall's like, I love his work. He throws it at him. Mario, you're an art fan. I did not know that. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Who's Picasso? I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Cut his ear off. I'm just kidding.
I don't know art either. I'm an admirer, but I couldn't tell you what makes one good or another. I'm absolutely awful at it. I can't paint. I cannot draw. I have no skill for that, except for a basketball court. I can draw an incredibly beautiful court. And my biggest complaint to this day where basketball is concerned is no video game on this face of this earth yet has ever created a net that swishes properly. With all this high-powered graphics, PS4, PS3, nobody has ever gotten the swish, the mechanic, or the sound fully properly
done. Now, here's
done.
the question. Did they care to, and they just missed it? Or do you think that they just never cared to?
Does it matter? It hasn't been done.
Yeah.
And it could be. It should be. I mean, because if I notice it, somebody else does.
Yeah.
But again, the pursuit of perfection in any art should be, that exact thing. But anyway, that's irrelevant. I'm getting off my own thing. I was just saying, and I don't know why I mentioned Picasso, that I'm just looking at the walls, but that's the whole, that, like I said, that culture of cool thing, it's sort of like I would never do something like that. That's not important to me. Yeah. But would I do it with something else that is important to me and spend some nonsensical amount of money to have, because like I said, I love basketball, I love movies. Well, maybe you think the Picasso thing is ridiculous, but what if, you had the chance to own, an authentic Blake book with his signature, or a first draft or something like that, and it's there sitting in the store, and you have a chance to put your hands on it, and maybe it's not something crazy, but it's like $250, or you already own the book, you already have it in your house. What are you going to do with that collectible? But you're like, oh, Blake, and he signed it, and it's like a first draft, and it's real, and there's only 10 in the world, you know. Now, because it matches your preferences, now it's okay. Now it's cool.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's tough because it seems like, and I'm sure it's always been this way, but because we're adults now, it feels like we live in a culture now where we have to place that value on everything. Where now, even to the degree that, like, even if it's an intangible value, Instagram or Facebook, we post a meal because we think that picture has value. Maybe not the art, maybe not the framing of the picture, but we think, look at this meal, like it's beautiful, or look how horrible it is, or look how good it looks. And we place value on it by capturing that moment and displaying it for the world. And we're putting value on things because we live in an age where that's how things are measured. Celebrity is measured not by your talent necessarily, right? But by your saturation, your exposure, how many people know your name. If my grandma knows who Julia Roberts is, that makes her more of a talent than, Martin Scorsese or whatever, whoever it is that you put those values on. And I think that's kind of where we get mixed up into that, because we live in that time where things have to have value, and it's hard for us to disassociate from that and just say, you know what, this is just cool. And to your point, and sometimes we do, whether we like it or not, we find ourselves defending our tastes or defending the value we put on things. And that's okay, that's okay.
Right.
But it still creates that stress that humans seem to feel nowadays, where our stress isn't just paying the bills or eating food or, staying alive. Now our stresses are, does my life have value? Do my possessions have value?
Right.
What am I, if I die tomorrow and someone goes through my house, what does my stuff say about me? And not to get all Fight Clubby about it, but that's part of it, And it's not even for people like us who don't consider ourselves superficial people, like, oh, Mario, you drive this, or Mike, you drive this, or I drive. We're not those type of people.
Right.
But on the same token, we're the type of people that, if you buy a sticker, where you put that sticker and what that sticker has on it says something about you, personally. And that's the type of people we are, right? To some degree. Or where, what book you have on your shelf. Like, part of it is these are things that matter to you and they're accessible to you. But part of it is, this is a representation of who you are. Whether it's subconscious or not,
And that's the question again, getting back to, because we're talking about, the whole, it's a whatever thing. It could be a guy thing. It could be a girl thing or a sporty thing or whatever. It doesn't matter. But, are there some books that I own that aren't on my shelves because I don't want people to see them when they walk in, when I'm showing my house off?
Everybody's got those books.
Ask yourself, you're talking about Instagram, stuff like that. How often do you delete pictures off your phone? It's like we've become this world where every picture I take, I have to hold on to it. I have to keep it. It doesn't matter what, well, I'll take it off my phone and sync it to my computer and I'll have it on there, but I'm not going to just delete it. Even if it was like, unless it's blurry or black, I'm not going to delete it. Doesn't matter what it was. I'll take 6,000 shots of the same thing and I'll look at them, and some of them look identical, but I'm going to hold on to all of them because I can't bear to part with them. And it reminds me of that whole thing in, I don't know which Silence of the Lambs it was, but it's like, I think it's Red Dragon. I think that's the one it's in, where he's like got the stuff from the Tooth Fairy in the toilet paper. He wrote him the admiration on a toilet paper. He wrote him an admiration letter to Lecter, and they find it in his cell.
I think it was Red
and they're like, why didn't he throw away the middle part? And Ed Norton's like, because it was full of compliments. He couldn't bear to part with it. Like, even a guy that brilliant, that obviously sociopathic, still needs self-validation. And that's amazing just to look at that, because my phone, it's got a larger size memory than the previous one had, and I've got like 3,000 pictures on there, but I've only posted to social media with my actual stuff that I have a handful of times, and I find myself pulling away from that stuff more and more. Like every couple of days, I find myself pulling away because of what I see on there. Like the stuff I see makes me, with some exceptions, like the stuff you do, or some like stuff Jeff does. Again, why do I think those are okay? It's not just because you're my friend, because you could easily upset me if you were like, again, to use an example, like if you were doing nothing but posting your pictures of your lattes, every day, like, look at my enchilada dinner at Chewy's, it's amazing, or selfies, like, and then hashtagging 50,000 different phrases where hashtags aren't even usable on Instagram. The whole concept of a hashtag is to meta search for similarities, and only Twitter can currently.
Well, Instagram does it now.
Does it really?
Now.
Yeah, that's in my
actually,
face.
So does Facebook now too.
But that's.
But people are making their own up to prove a point. They're not even using. That's what I meant. Like they're not using real hashtags that they know are going to be.
Look up that hashtag, and they're the only thing that pops up.
Right. It's just to make a point now, because now the hashtags are like cute phrases. Like hashtag loving myself at home, don't need nobody. Or single and loving it with my KFC bucket. It's just. So again, we're just trying to make sure people know we're out there. We're trying to make sure we're heard. Or valued, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we'll see how this podcast does then.
Right? This is all about us.
See if this is value.
This is our monolith.
Don't call in.
And technically,
we don't take calls.
I don't. Well, and that's something that we can definitely do later. But that's the thing, is that like I see this as just us getting together. Like to me, this was really. I love podcasting, but I really wanted this to be an excuse to get to hang out with you guys more often, because we don't get to hang out as much as we'd like to. And so I thought, this will be a good way to do that. And then every once in a while, we'll bring in a fourth person that'll be one of our friends that we don't get to see very often. It'll be an excuse to hang out with them too.
So what he's saying is that these microphones aren't plugged into anything.
He just suckered us
They're
in
just
here.
dangling off the table.
The website's fake. We're never going to be on iTunes. This is all just for my personal collection. So, and none of it will
He's
get
collecting
deleted.
us.
Collecting you.
It's his new obsession. I'm collecting my friends' voices.
Eventually, I'm friend napping.
On that note, we're sitting at 11:57 p.m. right now, and I think you're probably the first person that needs to wake up, right?
I'm actually fine. I was joking around.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I could go on forever, baby. Just like the guy in Home Alone.
Oh, okay.
But it's probably a good
breaking point. So that's the end of our first episode. This is really just an introductory episode. It's rather long. I think I don't know, whatever. Like I'm sitting at an almost 2-hour recording straight, but the first part of it is going to be like special collector's edition footage.
First and last episode.
Don't
the
worry,
entire
this will be
season
split
is
up.
this one episode broken up into 42 parts.
5-minute sections.
Little bits. Sorry, Mom.
So with that being said, this concludes our first episode. Stay tuned for more episodes from us on various topics, various lengths of topics, and us just talking off the top of our heads and spouting off nonsense, and hopefully some of that nonsense appeals to everybody. Or if not, then let us know if it doesn't appeal to you, and we'll delete you from our Facebooks and Instagrams and Twitter.
We'll give you back. Mario will personally write you a check for the time that you lost. So whatever your time is worth.
I was going to say in pesos, but
he also does car detailing.
Yes, I will detail your car personally.
Detailing. He will personally engrave your name on the side of your car.
Or our website, which is www.itsaguythingpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
We don't have any affiliate links or any sort of advertising set up for the It's a Guy Thing podcast just yet. However, as members of the 210 Podcast Network, we'll just play their advertisements. You can visit us on our home on the web at www.itsaguythingpodcast.com, on Instagram and Facebook at It's a Guy Thing Podcast, and Twitter, It's a Guy Thing Pod. You can find us on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, and we'll be coming soon to many other podcatchers. Thanks for listening.